Hi, I'm Janie Helms, and I'm going to be talking about the different types of teaching models. There are three main types. You have traditional, which is face-to-face instruction. Everybody's there in person. You have online, which, according to Jennifer Rivera, that she wrote in her article about the different types of learning, is that online learning is when you have self-paced, self-guided instruction virtually. The blended is a combo of both. There are online resources, online assignments, but you can still access them and behave in a classroom face-to-face. There are some similarities between traditional and online, but there are also some differences. So the most important one is that no matter if you're online or in person, there needs to be a clear set of instructions, expectations that students can follow. Okay, whether you are a young student or an adult learner, you need to be clear on what is expected in that class. Communication is another one. It just looks different. So communication, you need to be able to have discussions between classmates or discussions that can easily be fostered, back and forth, whether it be online or in person. You should be able to communicate with your instructor as well. Now, the differences that do set those apart is that when you have that communication with your instructor, when you have online, there's a little bit of a gap in responses. Reasoning is more thought out. Answers may not happen immediately. But with traditional in person, you can have that immediate confirmation of what you're thinking. You can have a back and forth discussion, and the conversation that's going on can build, it can digress into something else, and it gives a lot of good information. Now, good thing about advantages, again, like I said with the feedback, that is definitely an advantage to face-to-face. The communication skills. A lot of people nowadays have real good skills about writing, but they haven't had a whole lot of practice of having to say it in person. And believe me, there is a big difference in being able to write something and be able to talk about it. Now with the online, a lot of advantage to it is that, one, it's a cost-effective. I could pay for a class but not have to spend the extra gas money for travel. It is also more accessible. Me personally, I would not be able to do a master's program. I would not be able to further my education if I had to drive somewhere because the availability is just not there. So online is definitely the best option for me. Now the disadvantage. Again, I already mentioned that online has feedback issues. Not that you get bad feedback, it is just delayed. And sometimes you have to ask a lot of questions to really get what you were trying to say if you're not the best at writing those questions. There's also been research that talks about how online classes, there is not as good retention of the information. People usually try to find the information, write it, put it in there, but they don't have to really understand it to be able to pass that class. Although in a traditional, you're able to have that. It's a little more challenging in that aspect of really understanding the material. In the traditional, you don't, because you're there with the instructor every single day or whenever the class meets, you have someone telling you, hey, you need to do this, you need to do this, this is your timeline. So there's not a whole lot of self-paced or self-directed instruction as the learner. Also, if you're in the traditional setting, usually there's a lack of technology usage. So you don't get that practice that as an adult you would need in your job. Most jobs nowadays require some kind of technology usage. And if you're in a traditional classroom, you may not get that practice that you need. Now for me, I am a blended person, 100% me as an instructor. For my students, I have hard copies as well as electronic copies. I have a textbook, whether it's a PDF or in person. There are videos that describe things. I have classroom discussions that go back and forth. And I kind of want to give you a visual as to what I'm talking about. So exit out of this. This is my online classroom. And I have all my classes here. And if I were to go into my, let's say my physical science class, You can see that I have chapters laid out, and throughout the chapter, so here's the name of it, here's all the chapters if they need for the information. There are a set of vocabulary that they would need to know. Here's some Edpuzzles, which are videos that it's going to ask them questions while they watch the video at the exact time that they need to watch the video. They have the ability to retake the questions and practice them over and over if they would like. There is also worksheets. Even though I give them the paper worksheet, they complete the worksheet in class. They get help with me right there during the classroom. If they were to ever lose it or were absent and needed to reference to what it is, they have the ability to click on this worksheet and they are able to, once it loads, they can see the worksheet and what they would have had to do. This is very beneficial for someone who may end up having to stay home being sick. I can always refer to them. The assignment that you missed is online, and they could maybe even have it done when they come back if they were well enough to do that. So the blended classroom is my favorite, but both traditional and online, there is a definite difference, but there are some good similarities. And that is it for the teaching models.